Think about this for a moment. How often do we let emotions dictate our decisions? How often do we react in the heat of the moment only to look back with regret? It's a common struggle, one that defines so much of our experience as human beings. But here's the truth. Your emotions, no matter how intense, do not define you. They are not the ultimate authority over your life. Your mind is. Now, that's not to say emotions don't have their place. Of course they do. They provide depth to our experiences, give meaning to our relationships, and even push us toward action. But emotions left unchecked are like a wildfire. They spread, they consume, they distort reality. They make small problems seem like catastrophes. They make us act impulsively, saying things we don't mean, doing things we later regret. They rob us of clarity, of the ability to step back and assess a situation with logic and reason. Your mind, however, has a different function. It is the control center. It is the filter through which you can process and direct those emotions rather than being enslaved by them. The problem is most people don't strengthen this ability. Most people assume that whatever they feel in the moment must be true. If they feel anxious, then something must be wrong. If they feel angry, then they must be justified in lashing out. If they feel doubt, then it must mean they're not capable. But none of that is necessarily true. Emotions are reactions, not reality. Now, consider the alternative. Imagine a person who allows their emotions to lead. They wake up in the morning feeling tired and unmotivated, so they don't push themselves to work hard. They feel slighted by a friend, so they cut them off without seeking understanding. They feel frustrated by a challenge, so they quit before they see progress. Life, for them, becomes a roller coaster controlled by whatever their emotions decide. That's not strength. That's not freedom. That's servitude to a fleeting and often irrational force. But then there's the person who understands that their emotions are only one part of the equation. This person feels fear, but their mind steps in and says, fear does not mean danger. It means I am outside my comfort zone, and that is where growth happens. They feel anger, but pause and say, anger is energy. How can I channel it productively? They feel sadness, but don't allow it to define them because they recognize that emotions come in waves. They rise, they fall, and they always pass. This is what it means to have a strong mind, to observe your emotions rather than be controlled by them, to develop the habit of questioning rather than blindly following, to recognize that just because something feels true doesn't mean it is true. And this ability, this discipline of the mind, is not something you are simply born with. It is something you build, something you train, just like a muscle. You don't become mentally strong by accident. You don't develop control over your emotions by hoping they settle down on their own. You do it through conscious effort. You do it by catching yourself in the moment, by pausing before reacting, by asking yourself, is this how I want to respond? Is this the most rational, constructive way forward? You do it by challenging the voice inside your head that tells you you're not good enough, that tells you to give up, that tells you your emotions are in charge. And the more you do this, the stronger your mind becomes, the more power you reclaim, the less you are at the mercy of fleeting feelings, and the more you become the master of your own life. Because at the end of the day, it is not how you feel that determines where you go. It is what you do despite how you feel. That is what separates those who lead from those who follow. That is what separates those who break under pressure from those who rise. That is the difference between a life dictated by emotion and a life guided by strength. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, the next time emotions try to take the wheel, remember this: you have a choice. You always have a choice. Your mind is stronger than your emotions if only you have the discipline to use it. Think about the last time you made a decision purely out of emotion. Maybe it was anger, frustration, or even excitement. At that moment, it felt like the right thing to do. It felt justified. But looking back, was it? Did it actually serve you in the long run, or did it only satisfy an immediate impulse? Emotions have a way of distorting reality. They take a single moment, magnify it, and make it seem more significant than it really is. When you're angry, it feels like that anger is permanent, like it fully defines your experience. When you're anxious, it feels like the worst possible outcome is inevitable. When you're overwhelmed, your mind tells you there's no way forward, but none of that is actually true. It's just how emotions work. They create a tunnel vision effect, locking you into a singular perspective, blinding you from alternatives, from reason, from the bigger picture. Now, this isn't to say emotions are bad. They're necessary, They alert us to danger. They deepen our relationships. They give life its richness. But they were never meant to be the decision makers. They were meant to be advisors, signals, inputs, not the final authority. Yet so many people hand over control to them without question. They assume that if they feel something strongly, then it must be right. If they're hurt, then retaliation must be justified. If they're afraid, then retreat must be necessary. If they're frustrated, then quitting must be the answer. But that's a dangerous way to live, because emotions, when left unchecked, do not lead to wisdom. They lead to reactivity, and reactivity leads to regret. How many people have destroyed relationships because they let a moment of anger speak for them? How many people have sabotaged opportunities because they let self-doubt convince them they weren't ready? How many people have stayed stuck in cycles of frustration and despair simply because they never stopped to question whether their feelings were actually leading them in the right direction? The problem is that emotions demand immediate action. They push you toward instant gratification. They say, this is uncomfortable, get rid of it now. They scream for relief, even at the cost of long-term consequences. But the mind, the rational, disciplined mind, sees beyond the moment. It pauses, it evaluates, it asks, what is the real cost of this decision? What am I not seeing right now? Will this choice serve me tomorrow, or is it just about feeling better right now? That ability to pause, to step outside of the immediate emotion, is what separates those who lead from those who follow. It's what separates those who thrive from those who self-destruct. Because life will test you, people will provoke you, challenges will overwhelm you. And if you don't learn to master your emotions, they will master you. You will lash out when you should remain calm. You will quit when you should push through. You will make decisions in seconds that cost you years. And this isn't just about avoiding bad decisions, it's about making the right ones. Some of the greatest opportunities in life will come disguised as moments of doubt, fear, or discomfort. The job you don't feel ready for, the conversation you're too afraid to have, the risk that makes your heart race. If you let emotions dictate your choices, you will shrink from these moments. You will rationalize avoidance. You will convince yourself that playing it safe is the right move, when in reality, it's just the easy move. But the person who understands the power of their mind, they don't let emotions make their choices for them. They listen to them, but they don't obey them blindly. They feel fear, but they act with courage. They feel anger, but they choose wisdom. They feel doubt, but they move forward anyway. And that's why they win. That's why they grow. That's why they achieve what others never will. Because they have learned that emotions are temporary, but consequences are permanent. So the next time you feel yourself reacting, the next time an emotion tries to take control, stop, take a breath, ask yourself, is this feeling leading me towards strength or toward weakness? Is it guiding me to build or to destroy? Because the difference between success and failure, between fulfillment and regret, is not how you feel in the moment. It's what you choose to do despite it. Life is hard. That's an undeniable truth. No one escapes suffering. No one avoids struggle. The question isn't whether or not you'll face adversity. The question is whether or not you'll be strong enough to withstand it. And that strength isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. It's something you forge through discipline, through challenge, through the willingness to push forward even when everything in you wants to quit. That's what mental resilience is. It's the difference between those who crumble under pressure and those who rise in the face of it. Most people don't train themselves for resilience. They assume strength is something that just appears when they need it, but that's not how it works. Strength is built in the small, everyday battles. It's built when you wake up and choose to push through fatigue. It's built when you resist the urge to complain and instead focus on solutions. It's built when you feel like giving up, but you take one more step forward anyway. The mind, just like the body, adapts to what it's exposed to. If you constantly avoid discomfort, you become weaker. If you consistently face challenges head on, you become stronger. It's as simple as that. But most people don't think that way. Most people avoid hardship at all costs. They seek comfort, not realizing that comfort is a double-edged sword. Of course, there's nothing wrong with enjoying moments of peace, but when you prioritize ease over growth, you start to decay. You become fragile. You lose the ability to endure difficulty. And then, when life inevitably throws something painful your way, a setback, a betrayal, a failure, you collapse under its weight. That's the price of avoiding struggle. It doesn't keep you safe. It makes you unprepared. The reality is, if you want to be strong, you have to deliberately expose yourself to challenge. You have to put yourself in situations where quitting is an option, but refusing to quit is a choice. That's how you develop the ability to keep going when things get hard. That's how you become the kind of person who doesn't break under pressure. The kind of person who, when life hits, doesn't just endure, but becomes sharper, stronger, and more capable than before. And this doesn't mean you won't feel pain. Of course you will. Resilience isn't about ignoring suffering. It's about refusing to let suffering define you. It's about understanding that pain is a teacher, not an enemy. Every time you push through hardship, you are proving to yourself that you are capable. Every time you face a challenge without running from it, you are reinforcing the belief that you are stronger than your circumstances. That belief is what separates those who live with purpose from those who drift aimlessly forever at the mercy of their emotions and external conditions. You don't become resilient overnight. It's a process, a daily decision, a commitment to yourself that no matter what happens, no matter how difficult things get, you will not allow yourself to break. You will not let temporary discomfort dictate your future, because that's what weakness is. It's giving power to the temporary, while strength is built by focusing on the long term. And the long term rewards those who refuse to quit. So when you find yourself in a difficult moment, when you feel like you can't go any further, remember this: strength isn't about feeling invincible. It's about taking action despite the struggle. It's about looking at the obstacle in front of you and saying, I may not have control over what happens, but I have control over how I respond. That's where real power comes from. And once you develop that kind of resilience, nothing, not fear, not failure, not even pain, can hold you back. Your thoughts shape your reality. It's not just some abstract idea. It's a fundamental truth about how you experience the world. Every decision you make, every action you take, every opportunity you either seize or let slip away is determined at its core by the way you think. And yet most people never stop to question their own thoughts. They assume that the voice in their head is telling them the truth. But what if it isn't? What if that voice is working against you? Think about how often negative thoughts arise, how often you tell yourself that you're not good enough, that you'll probably fail, that there's no point in trying. Where do those thoughts come from? Were you born thinking that way? No. Those thoughts were programmed into you over time by experiences, by other people's opinions, by past failures. And without realizing it, you internalized them, you accepted them as facts, even though they're nothing more than assumption. Now, here's the problem. The mind is incredibly powerful, but it's also incredibly obedient. It believes what you repeatedly tell it. If you constantly reinforce doubt, fear, and limitation, your mind will accept those things as reality. And once you accept them, you begin to live by them. You hesitate when you should act. You shrink when you should rise. You see obstacles instead of possibility. You let your own thoughts become the prison that keeps you from moving forward. But the good news, the part most people never realize, is that just as your mind was programmed with doubt, it can be reprogrammed for strength. You are not stuck with the thoughts you have. You can change them, you can challenge them, you can actively reshape the way you think, and in doing so, you can reshape your entire life. But it won't happen passively. It won't happen just because you want it to. It happens through effort, through conscious awareness, through the willingness to take control of your inner dialogue rather than letting it control you. It starts with awareness. You have to become an observer of your own mind. The next time you hear yourself thinking, I can't do this, stop. Ask yourself, is that actually true? Or is it just something I've told myself so many times that I've come to believe it? More often than not, you'll find that it's just a habit of thought. And like any habit, it can be broken. Once you recognize a negative pattern, replace it. You don't fight darkness by wrestling with it. You fight it by bringing in light. Instead of telling yourself you're not capable, tell yourself that you're learning. Instead of saying you're not ready, remind yourself that no one ever feels completely ready. And action is what creates confidence. Instead of focusing on all the reasons you might fail, focus on the reasons you must try. And at first it will feel unnatural, your mind will resist, it will cling to old patterns because that's what it knows. But if you persist, If you make a daily habit of questioning and replacing negative thoughts, you will start to notice a shift. And that shift is life-changing, because when you change your thoughts, you change your emotion. When you change your emotions, you change your actions. And when you change your actions, you change your outcomes. A person who thinks they are destined to fail will hesitate, procrastinate, and ultimately give up. A person who believes they can grow, adapt, and improve will find a way forward, no matter the challenge. That's the power of thought. That's the power of reprogramming your mind to work for you instead of against you. This isn't about blind optimism. It's not about pretending life is easy or that success is guaranteed. It's about recognizing that the way you think directly affects your ability to navigate hardship. It's about realizing that your thoughts are either fueling your growth or feeding your limitations. And once you understand that, you can no longer afford to be passive with your mind. You must take control. You must decide every single day that you will not let old limiting patterns dictate your future. So pay attention. Challenge the voice inside your head. Rewire your thoughts with discipline and intention. Because if you don't control your mind, something else will. And that is not a risk you can afford to take. Success isn't just about intelligence. It's not just about talent either. Plenty of intelligent people never reach their potential. And plenty of talented people self-destruct. The difference, the thing that separates those who rise from those who stay stuck, is emotional control. Because life will test you, people will frustrate you, circumstances will shake you, and if you don't have control over your emotions, you don't have control over your decision. And if you don't have control over your decisions, you don't have control over your life. Think about the moments when people fail, not just in their careers, but in relationships, in leadership, and personal growth. It's rarely because they weren't capable. More often than not, it's because they let their emotions dictate their actions. They let anger push them into saying something they can't take back. They let frustration convince them that quitting was the only option. They let fear stop them from taking the risk that could have changed everything. Emotions are powerful, and if you let them take the wheel, they will drive you straight into regret. But the people who succeed, the ones who build something meaningful, who lead, who inspire, those people have mastered the art of controlling their emotions instead of being controlled by them. Now, that doesn't mean they don't feel anger, fear, or frustration. It means they don't act impulsively on those emotions. They pause, they think, they ask themselves, what is the best move here? Not the easiest, not the most immediately satisfying, but the best. And then they act accordingly. That ability is what allows them to make sound decisions under pressure. It's what keeps them moving forward when most people would give up. It's what allows them to see the bigger picture when everyone else is caught up in the storm of their own emotions. And make no mistake, this isn't something they were born with. It's something they trained, something they practiced. And that means you can train it too. It starts with awareness. Most people don't even realize when their emotions are controlling them. They think they're just reacting naturally to the situation in front of them, when in reality, they're being pulled around by whatever feeling is strongest in the moment. But the moment you become aware, when you stop and notice, I'm about to react out of anger, or I'm making this decision out of fear, that's when you take back control. That's when you give yourself the chance to choose differently. And choosing differently is where growth happens. It's when you feel like lashing out, but instead take a breath and respond with clarity. It's when you feel like running from discomfort, but instead push forward and face it. It's when you feel self-doubt creeping in, but refuse to let it dictate your actions. Over time, these moments stack up. They build resilience. They build discipline. They turn you into the kind of person who can handle pressure, who can stay composed when others crumble, who can navigate uncertainty with confidence. And that's what success demands. Because the world is unpredictable. Things won't always go your way. You'll face setbacks. You'll be misunderstood. You'll deal with people who frustrate you. If you don't have control over your emotions, those things will break you. But if you do, if you can stay steady when others panic, if you can think strategically when others react impulsively, that's when you set yourself apart. That's when you become someone who doesn't just survive difficulty, but thrives in it. So the next time you feel yourself getting swept up in emotions, stop, breathe, ask yourself, is this the decision my strongest, most disciplined self would make? And if the answer is no, then you already know what you need to do, because the path to success isn't found in reacting to every emotion that comes your way. It's found in mastering them. And the person who can do that, the person who can control their emotions, controls their future. Your mind is the most powerful tool you will ever have. It is the force that shapes your reality, the engine that drives your actions, the one thing that determines whether you rise to your potential or collapse under the weight of your own limitations. And yet, most people never learn how to use it properly. They let it wander aimlessly. They let it be consumed by fear, by doubt, by distractions that serve no real purpose. They hand over control to external circumstances, to emotions, to the opinions of others, never realizing that everything they need to succeed, to grow, to build a meaningful life has been within them all along. The world will tell you that your success is determined by luck, by talent, by external factors beyond your control. And while those things play a role, they are not the deciding factor. The deciding factor is how you think, how you choose to perceive challenges, how you train yourself to respond to setbacks, how you discipline your mind to see possibilities where others see only obstacles. That is what separates those who rise from those who stay stuck. Not circumstances, not background, not privilege, mindset. Think about it. Two people can face the same challenge, but one will break under the pressure, while the other will find a way to push through. What's the difference? It's not intelligence, it's not strength, it's the way they think. The one who succeeds has trained their mind to be their ally, not their enemy. They don't indulge in self-pity. They don't allow fear to paralyze them. They don't waste time blaming the world for their problems. Instead, they take responsibility. They ask, what can I do? How can I grow from this? What is within my control? And because they think this way, they act accordingly. And that's what most people don't realize. Your thoughts dictate your actions. If you believe you're not good enough, you won't try. If you believe the world is against you, you won't take risks. If you believe your past mistakes define you, you won't give yourself the chance to improve. But if you train your mind to see setbacks as lessons, if you teach yourself to focus on solutions rather than problems, if you commit to replacing self-doubt with self-discipline, everything changes. Suddenly, opportunities appear where before there were only roadblocks. Strength emerges where before there was only hesitation, and you start to understand that the greatest battles you will ever fight are not against the world, but within your own mind. But this isn't something that happens overnight. You don't wake up one day with an indestructible mindset. You build it. You train it just like a muscle. Every time you choose to challenge a negative thought, you strengthen it. Every time you push through fear instead of backing down, you reinforce it. Every time you discipline yourself to take action despite how you feel, you are programming your mind for resilience, for clarity, for success. And over time, those small choices add up. They create a version of you that is stronger, sharper, more capable than the one that existed before. And that version of you, the one who is in control of their mind, who refuses to be a victim of circumstance, who does what needs to be done even when it's hard, that is the person who succeeds. Because when your mind is strong, nothing can break you. Not failure, not rejection, not fear. The world can throw obstacles in your path, but you will find a way over, around, or through them. That is the power of a disciplined mind. That is what separates those who lead from those who follow. That is what makes the difference between a life dictated by fear and a life built on strength. So if you take away anything, let it be this. Your mind is your greatest weapon. But like any weapon, it must be sharpened, trained, and used with precision. And if you can do that, if you can take control of your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own actions, there is nothing in this world that can stop you. Life will test you. It will throw challenges in your path, push you to your limits, and demand more from you than you ever thought you could give. And in those moments when everything feels uncertain, when fear and doubt try to take control, the only thing that will determine whether you rise or fall is the strength of your mind. Not your emotions, not your circumstances, your mind. You have the power to control your thoughts, to reprogram your patterns, to build resilience, to master your emotions, and to shape the way you respond to the world. And if you can do that, if you can train yourself to think clearly, to act with discipline, to refuse to be controlled by fear or temporary impulses, then there is no limit to what you can accomplish, because the person who masters their mind masters their life. So take control. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't rely on external validation. Don't let fleeting emotions dictate your future. Start now. Strengthen your mind, discipline your thoughts, and step into the kind of life that only those who refuse to be controlled by weakness will ever experience. Because at the end of the day, your mind is your greatest weapon, and it's time you started using it to its full potential.